Is Texas not only the favorite, but the heavy favorite to win the national title in 2025? One big analytical model says yes. We'll dive into it on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You were locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin native, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell your Longhorn friends about Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We've got some recruiting updates for the 2027 cycle a little bit later. We will also preview the Women's College World Series final. Texas and Texas Tech game one tonight in Oklahoma City. The Horns 2 wins away from a national championship. We'll get to that all a little bit later in today's episode. But first, ESPN dropped its first college football power index ratings for the 2025 season yesterday. That's a mouthful. The Football Power Index, FPI for short, is defined by ESPN as, quote, a predictive rating system that estimates each FBS team's strength in points per game relative to national average on offense, defense, and special teams, making adjustments for starters lost, recruiting talent, and other personnel changes, end quote. For the preseason rankings, obviously where we're at right now, quote, those numbers are then plugged into the schedule and everything is simulated 20,000 times to track each team's odds of winning its conference, making the playoff, and advancing through to the national title. End quote. Does that make sense? Yeah, I'm not sure it does either. That's how ESPN defines the FPI predictive metric. In layman's terms, at least my best attempt to put this in layman's terms, ESPN's FPI is a predictive formula that they use to predict what is going on. They rank every team in college football, and they, again, try to predict what is going to happen in any given season. So it's an analytical model that ESPN came up with, and it spits out a bunch of numbers every single year. And a lot of people pay attention to this, and more often than not, the FPI is relatively close to accurate when it comes to what actually happens in college football. Anyways, most of y'all probably already knew that stuff, but there's a quick refresher for you. While we're talking about this, the team with the number one FPI ranking, your Texas Longhorns. To further break down what that means, let's do this. Let's go category by category. According to ESPN's FPI, odds to make the college football playoff in 2025. Texas at the top of that list. The Longhorns are given an 83.9% chance to make the 12-team CFP in 2025. Again, nearly an 84% chance to make it to the playoff for what would be a third consecutive season in Austin. That is higher than any other team in college football. Georgia is number 2 at about 78.5%. Ohio State, the defending national champs, come in at number 3, 70.6%. Alabama, the Crimson Tide, who of course missed the playoff last year, they are 4th at 66.2%. And then Penn State rounds out the top 5, 63.8%. But obviously, we're focusing here on Texas, 83.9%. The Longhorns better odds than any other team in college football to make it back to the college football playoff. 84%. That is crazy, considering that Texas has road games at Ohio State and at Georgia. Teams ranked 2 and 3 in this very same metric. The Longhorns have to play both of them away from home. Yet still, Texas is given better odds than either of those teams to make it to the CFP. Now, if Texas wins both of those games, well, they're definitely making it to the playoff. If they win one of those games, more than likely, they are going to make it to the playoff. If they go 0-2 against the Buckeyes and the Bulldogs, they can still make the playoff. And Texas is going to be favored in their other 10 games. I don't think there's any doubt about that, barring a bunch of crazy injuries, knock on wood, or just ridiculously unforeseen circumstances. At worst, Texas is underdogs in 2 regular season games. We know they're 3-point dogs right now for the Ohio State game, according to our friends at FanDuel, today's video sponsor. And they might be dogs on the road at Georgia. That game's not till November, so we'll see what happens as we get closer. Texas can lose both of those 2 games. If they take care of the rest of their business, they're still going to get in. 10-2 SEC team will make the playoff 100 times out of 100. Even in the 12-teamer, we know we're about to expand probably to 16 starting in 2026. But look at Tennessee from a season ago. 10 wins, didn't have to make it to the SEC title game. They still had a spot in the college football playoff. So maybe that's why Texas is so highly ranked according to the FPI. Again, an 83.9% chance to make the CFP. What about odds to win the SEC? Texas on top of that list as well. The Longhorns are given a 34.1% chance to win the SEC in year 2. Now, Texas doesn't have the best odds to win a conference. Boise State is the team that has that honor, but of course they play in the Mountain West a heck of a lot easier than the SEC. There's 5 teams that have better odds to win a conference championship this year in college football. Ohio State is the only Power 4 team that's got a better chance to win their league, according to the FPI. But again, focusing specifically on the SEC, it's the only conference championship Texas is allowed to win. The Longhorns, 34.1% chance to win the league this year. Georgia coming in at number 2 in that regard. So FPI is predicting another Texas-Georgia matchup in Atlanta, which would be 2 consecutive years of 2 Longhorn Bulldogs matchups. Georgia's got a 26.9% chance. So that's 7.5 percentage point difference. Texas number 1, Georgia number 2, Alabama coming in at number 3, 17.2%. And I found this interesting. Nobody else has more than a 10% chance to win the conference, according to ESPN FPI. So they view this as a 3-horse race in 2025 in order: Texas, Georgia, and Alabama. Obviously, an interesting year, too, for Kalen DeBoer coming up for the Crimson Tide. But according to this analytical model, those are the 3 teams that stand alone right now in the Southeastern Conference. Texas, a 34.1% chance to win the league. Again, it's a favorable schedule for the Longhorns. Obviously, the Ohio State game on the road in non-conference play makes it very tough, but you just look at the SEC games in a vacuum. I know there's some games that could cause problems. At the Swamp is never easy. Obviously, the Georgia game we talked about, Oklahoma, anything can happen in that rivalry game at the Cotton Bowl. But Texas has one of the easier conference schedules this year, even though they only have 3 true home games in SEC play this season. The Longhorns, again, they will be favored in all of their SEC games except for one. They could be favored in all of them. We'll see what happens by the time we get to that game between the hedges in November. And last but not least, odds to win the national championship, according to ESPN FPI. Texas, number 1 in that category as well. How about a 24.1% chance? Again, ESPN did 20,000 simulations for this FPI metrics, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if metrics is a word. 24.1% of the time in those simulations, Texas ended up winning the national title. It's almost 1/4. That is crazy. The Longhorns far and away number 1 in this stat. Georgia, again, coming in at number 2. They're given a 17.9% chance to win it all. The defending champs, Ohio State and Alabama, are actually tied at 3rd with 10.8%, and no other team in college football has more than a 10% chance to win it all this season. Penn State is 5th at 7%. Oregon comes in at 6th at 4.3%. So you start to see even more of a drop-off once you get beyond the top 4 to 5. Yeah, the Longhorns, 24.1% chance to win it all. So it's safe to say that the ESPN FPI is very high on Texas. Second place, nearly 7% behind them in terms of odds to win it all this coming season. Do you agree? Comment below with your thoughts. Look, is it possible that Texas wins a national title? Sure. I think these numbers are a little bit overinflated in favor of Texas. I hope it's right. I hope Texas is hoisting a couple of trophies at the end of the year. But Texas has a lot of questions. I mean, I'm super high on Arch Manning, but we've never seen Arch Manning start a full season of college football. The Longhorns lost 12 players to the NFL draft this past season. They're replacing some key figures on both sides of the football. And again, tough road games in Columbus and in Athens. There are some questions about this Texas team. I think this team is far from perfect, but we talked about it last week. Every team around the country has questions. There is no clear-cut, obvious number one team in America right now. So that is good news for Texas. Like, they've got just as good of a shot as any other team in the nation. And you look at what Sark has done in terms of recruiting and adding talent both from the high school ranks and through the transfer portal. Like, Texas is going to be a preseason top 3 team in America when the AP poll comes out in August. So having them ranked pretty high shouldn't come as much of a surprise. And it's right, honestly, having Texas near the top. But man, 84% chance to make the playoff, 24% chance to win it all. That feels nuts to me. Obviously, to do that in today's day and age, you need a lot of things to go right. Hopefully, Texas can make it happen. They've been knocking on the door these last 2 years, a couple of plays away from maybe a couple of national championships these past 2 seasons. They've got to find a way to get over that semifinal hump. But again, this analytical formula gives the Longhorns a great chance to win their first national championship since 2005. If things go right, if Arch is the guy we think he is, and Texas has developed the talent the way that we want them to where they're not going to miss those 12 draft picks as much as they could, then yeah, the Longhorns could be hoisting a trophy in January. Obviously, if those things don't happen, then ESPN's FPI will not be accurate, and that will be disappointing. All right, well, take your thoughts. Comment below if you're watching on YouTube. Do you agree? Should Texas be the clear-cut favorite to win the national title in 2025? Or is the ESPN FPI drinking a little bit too much burnt orange Kool-Aid? Want to hear from y'all. Let's shift gears here. We're going to keep the Texas football conversation going, but we're going to talk more about the future of the Longhorns. We've got some recruiting nuggets. A big elite camp this past Sunday in Austin. Texas offered 22 players. We'll talk about some of them and give you some big updates on some big humans for the class of 2027 coming up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, some love to our friends at FanDuel. Oh, yeah, the NBA Finals get going tomorrow. It's Oklahoma City. It's Indiana. Game 1 in OKC tomorrow night. And our friends at FanDuel are giving you more ways to win than ever before. If you want to bet the favorite, hey, put your money on the Thunder. If you want to bet the underdog, hey, Indiana's pulled off some upsets to get here. You could bet on the Pacers. You could bet on the series. You could bet on games. You could bet on individual players. You've got prop bets. You've got same game parlays. You could bet before the game. You could bet after the ball is tipped as well. More ways to win than ever before, and FanDuel makes it so easy. Whether it's the FanDuel app or FanDuel.com, you can get in on all of the action, all postseason long. Yeah, make it happen with our friends at FanDuel. Right now, they are hooking you up with a great offer for first-time customers. Just head over to their website, FanDuel.com, place a $5 bet. If your first $5 bet wins, guess what? They're going to hook you up with $200 in bonus bets. That's right, FanDuel.com. You place a $5 bet. If that bet wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets just like that from our friends at FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. It's the month of June. The weather's heating up outside, and recruiting is heating up for Texas football as well. This has been the biggest month for Texas recruiting in the Steve Sarkisian era, and a change to the recruiting cycle in 2025. The month of July is a dead period. So you're going to see a lot more activity happen over these next 3.5 weeks before that dead period picks up. Texas, we talked about it yesterday, more than 50 official visitors making their way to campus over these next few weekends. The Longhorns have 13 coming to town this weekend alone. Some key targets for the class of 2026 and a couple for future classes as well. Tomorrow and Friday, as we get closer to the weekend, we will do more of a deep dive preview on the guys that will be here this coming weekend. But now some of the guys who are here this past weekend at the elite camp. I mentioned it. Texas offered 22 new prospects at the elite camp that took place in Austin this past Sunday. The most recent, by the way, a lineman from Gilmer, Texas, Ishmael Kamara, who's the younger brother, stepbrother of Texas and NFL ex Curtis Brown, who also played his high school football at Gilmer. So a lot of Longhorn ties and a lot of former NFL ties. We talked about Gunnar Rivers. Obviously, we spent the first segment talking about Arch Manning. We talked about Gunnar Rivers being here this past weekend. He's the son of Philip Rivers. Now you've got the younger brother of Texas and NFL ex Curtis Brown getting offered by the University of Texas. All 22 of those offers were made to recruits in the classes of 2027 and 2028. So not this current cycle, but the next two. And again, this weekend, 13 Longhorn targets for the class of 2026 are slated to make their official visits. So this month of June should be nonstop recruiting. Want to dive in, though, on some of the 2027s who were in town this past weekend, starting with a name that you are going to hear a lot about over the next year and a half. Cornerback John Meredith III. Texas kid, plays at Euless Trinity, close to the Metroplex. He was here this past weekend, and he told On Texas Football that he has Texas in his top three right now. Also said Penn State is in there. Then he said USC, Alabama, and Oregon are competing for that third and final spot in the top three, which kind of feels like he's got a top five right now. But hey, who cares? The good news is he mentioned Texas right off the bat. So Texas and Penn State kind of feels like they're in a league of their own right now. And obviously, at least you would think it would help that he plays his high school football in the state of Texas. John Meredith III, a five-star. He is the fourth-ranked player in the country for the class of 2027. He is the top-ranked corner in the country for the class of 2027. How about 6'2", 175? Still has a couple years of high school ball left, but he plays in 6A Texas high school football, so he's going up against some really good talent week in and week out. And again, 6'2" for a corner. He might not be done growing yet. That is the length that you were looking for in the SEC. That's the length you're looking for at any level of football for a corner. This is a guy with an incredibly bright future. A lot of the recruiting services think at some point down the line he could be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. This would be a huge get for Texas. Again, long way to go until we get to National Signing Day. Long way to go until John Meredith III commits, more than likely. But he was here this past weekend. Sounds like he had a great time, and he thinks very highly of Texas right now. So that's a name to, again, keep in mind. A couple of other 2027s who are in town. Man, this offensive line class next year is really, really good. I'd even use the word loaded to describe just how many great offensive linemen there are in the 2027 cycle. And, Steve Sarkisian, I think we played the audio a week or two ago right here on Locked On Longhorns. He's openly talked about wanting to build the offensive line through the high school ranks. Texas has obviously had a ton of success through the portal these last few years, but they haven't used the portal for the offensive line. They have just recruited out of high school, and they have developed incredibly well, and that's their plan this year. Even though they lost 4 guys from last year's team, they said, no, we don't need anybody out of the portal. We trust our evals. We trust our development. Got one of the best offensive line coaches in the nation with Kyle Flood, and the strategy has worked pretty well to this point for Texas. So if they are able, a roundabout way to say, if they are able to cash in this recruiting class of 2027 on the offensive line, they can keep implementing that same strategy, which again has worked to this point. And I think in Sark's perfect world, it will continue to work well into the future. Kennedy Brown from Kingwood High, already a national household name to you recruiting junkies out there. Maybe the top offensive lineman in the state. I think most recruiting services do have him as the top-ranked O-lineman in the state, but it's not just him. Brian Swanson from South Oak Cliff in the Metroplex. You've got the aforementioned Ishmael Kamara, the stepbrother of Curtis Brown, who plays his high school football at Gilmer. Both of those guys were in town this weekend, and they both apparently wowed the Texas staff, according to some insider reports that I read following that elite camp this past Sunday. Both of those guys considered incredibly talented. They're actually both bigger than Kennedy Brown. But yeah, Brian Swanson, Ishmael Kamara, a couple of names to remember for Texas on the offensive line. And then Peyton Miller from Anna High School, also kind of close to the Metroplex. He's a center. I think he's going to be at the top of the board for Texas early on at that position, an interior offensive line. A lot of people pay attention to the tackles. You understand why, but obviously getting those interior offensive linemen is incredibly important. And Peyton Miller, a guy who could play center. He can also play guard. He looked really good and impressed the coaching staff when he was in town a couple of days ago. So that's just what, 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure I got that right. Yeah, 4 O linemen who were here for that 2027 class. Texas, if they land 2, 3, obviously all 4 of those guys, they're going to be sitting pretty with the big uglies for years to come. I like the strategy. Again, I hope it continues, and I know the coaching staff does as well. It's going to be a fun cycle to watch on the offensive line for Texas, of course, this year too, but moving forward into 27. All right, there's your recruiting update for today's show. I feel like my voice is starting to give out on me a little bit. Sorry to you people that y'all got to listen to this right now, but we'll power through. We've got one segment to go on a Wednesday show. Texas softball, 2 wins away from a national championship. Game 1 of the Women's College World Series final starts tonight. We will preview the Longhorns and the Red Raiders coming up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. Welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Game 1 of the Women's College World Series Championship Series tonight at 7 o'clock Central Time on ESPN. It's the 6th seed Texas going up against the former Big 12 and in-state rival Texas Tech, the 12 seed at the start of the NCAA tournament. Texas, because they're the higher seed, they are the designated home team for Game 1 tonight. Of course, these games will all take place in Oklahoma City. Texas, the home team tonight. They'll be the visitors tomorrow. If this best of 3 needs a Game 3 on Friday, Texas will get the last at-bats in the series finale. Look, for Texas, 2 wins away from a national title. It's kind of a continuation of what they've done these last few years. They've been knocking on the doorstep, similar to Texas football, right? Getting close, but not quite getting over the hump. Texas softball is in the championship series for the 3rd time in the last 4 years. And the best news about this year, they're the favorites. They don't have to go up against Oklahoma and play road games against Oklahoma. The demon has already been slayed. Texas beat Oklahoma. Texas Tech knocked out Oklahoma with their win against them on Monday. So OU is out. Now, Texas Tech is really good, and they're a phenomenal story. I don't want to sit here and sound like I'm guaranteeing a national title for Texas, but of their 3 trips to the final 2 in the Women's College World Series, this is far and away their best opportunity to win it all. So we'll see if the Horns can bring their first title back to Austin, Texas. Texas Tech's a great story. They've got maybe the best pitcher in the country in Nigeri Kennedy, but it's pretty incredible looking at this Texas Tech team. First time they've ever made the Women's College World Series. Obviously, their first time in the final series as well. They won the Big 12 this year for the first time in school history. And it's pretty crazy how far the Red Raiders have come. They've got a first-year head coach, so making it this far with a first-year coach is a miracle in itself. But Texas Tech was really bad last season. They didn't even make the NCAA tournament a year ago. And they played Texas 4 times. It was a 3-game series in Lubbock. Obviously, the Longhorns and Red Raiders were in the same conference last year. Texas won those 3 games 13-3, 23-0, and 14-4. All of those games were 5-inning run rules. The 2 teams met again in the Big 12 conference tournament. Texas 13, Texas Tech 4, another 5-inning run rule. So, Texas Tech was non-competitive against Texas. And it wasn't just against Texas. Oklahoma smoked them in the series that they played last year. Like, Texas Tech has taken such a big step this season. They're a great story. And give credit to their coach, but obviously the big story, Nigeri Kennedy, the pitcher that they spent more than $1 million on to get out of the transfer portal. She has thrown every single pitch for Tech in this College World Series, and Texas is going to have to get to her. The good news, Texas has done that before. They are 3-0 against Nigeri Kennedy in the last 375 days. Texas went 2-0 against her last year in the Women's College World Series when she was pitching for Stanford. 2 Texas wins, one 1-0, one 4-0. Tegan Cavan, the Longhorn pitcher in both of those games, she outdueled Kennedy in both of those. And then earlier this season, Texas beat Texas Tech 2-1 in Austin in a game that Tegan Cavan pitched for UT. Nigeri Kennedy pitched for Texas Tech, and Texas got the win in 9 innings. So 3 matchups between Cavan and Kennedy, 3 wins for Tegan to this point. People sleep on her, man. Everybody talks about Kennedy. She's awesome. She deserves it. Don't get me wrong. But look at the numbers in this year's Women's College World Series. Tegan Kavan has a lower ERA than Nigeri Kennedy does to this point. Like, Kennedy's got the strikeouts, but Kavan has given up fewer hits and fewer runs so far in the Women's College World Series. And again, she is 3-0 against Kennedy. So hopefully the Texas Bats have a little confidence going up against her. They should have some confidence in Kavan taking the bump because she has been really, really good all season long. For Texas, got to take advantage of the mistakes. Kennedy doesn't make very many of them. Texas's offense has been powered by a lot of solo home runs. They've only scored 9 runs in 3 Women's College World Series games to this point. A lot of those, I think 5 of those have been via solo homers. So if they get mistakes, they got to take advantage. Speaking of taking advantage, they have to do the opposite of what Texas baseball did. Texas baseball couldn't find those timely hits with runners in scoring position late in games, whatever. I don't think the Longhorns are going to have too many opportunities with ducks on the pond against Kennedy. When they do get those moments, when they do get a runner or runners in scoring position, they have to find a way to get that big hit, because I think these games are all going to be pretty low scoring. 2-1, 3-2. We might have a 1-0 game at some point. But I mentioned it. Kennedy has thrown every pitch for Tech to this point. I know it could be 3 games in 3 straight days if the series needs it, but I'd be pretty surprised if anybody else is inside the circle for Texas Tech. The Longhorns have to find a way to get to her. And again, take advantage of your opportunities. She doesn't give you much. You got to turn an inch into a mile if you're this Texas offense. But it'll be fun to watch. An amazing year for Mike White and company. And this is a pretty cool stat as we wrap things up for a Wednesday show. There have only been 2 instances where the same school had a team in the Women's Final Four and the Women's College World Series Finals in the same year. Tennessee did it back in 2007. Texas has obviously done it this year. So shout out to the ladies doing a tremendous job. Obviously, volleyball has won 2 of the last 3 national championships. Rowing's been great. Tennis has been great. Swimming and diving, track and field. The list goes on and on. But pretty cool. It's very rare that the same school has a team make the Final Four and the Women's College World Series final in the same season. Texas only the 2nd team all time to do that. So hopefully the Horns can bring home a national championship in softball, 2 wins away. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. On tomorrow's show, we will recap Game 1, the Women's College World Series final, talk about Game 2, and we'll talk more Texas football. Again, we'll set the stage for the huge upcoming recruiting weekend for the Longhorns. If you made it this far, number 1, thank you very much. Number 2, please remember to like, share, subscribe, rate 5 stars, all of those great things, and leave a comment below with your thoughts on any of today's conversation or ideas for future videos as well. Always love hearing from y'all. Can't thank you enough for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, signings, recruiting nuggets, everything you need to know when it comes to the transfer portal and recruiting for your favorite college football teams. Brian Smith has you covered. You can find the portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, horns up, mic's off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.